So in this video, we're going to talk about the step-by-step process, a process that you're going to teach using steps. Now this is different than the demo, which we just talked about. It's kind of similar because you're showing people how things work, but it's different in that you're not talking specifically and building this for the product. Yes, obviously we're creating a step-by-step process and you're going to mention the product, but that's not what this is helpful for. It's not helpful for showing people how to use something. It's helpful for showing people how this thing actually plays a role in a much bigger set of steps to accomplish something. So what we're trying to do is help people accomplish something with a number of steps, and it just so happens that our product is involved in one of those steps or more. So first, let me give you some best practices for how to set this up. So first of all, you might be wondering, well, where is this going to live? Well, it can live in many different places. You can have it be a blog post. You can have it be a podcast episode or a video. You can mix all those things. Again, remember, whatever the best way for you to share this step-by-step process would make sense. I'll show you examples later on where it's actually a mix of them. Some of them just blog posts only. Some of them are just happening in videos. It could be any way. Now, the best way to engineer this is to first select a goal, and if it's related to that product, great. It might be already actually, because you've discovered, okay, well, this product might be the first in a series of things they might need to do to get to a certain goal. So what is that goal? Is that the thing that you can teach? Maybe it's a little bit too big in the process, so you want to shrink it down to another sort of mini milestone or something that can be achieved from your audience members. So you can focus on any goal that you want, and then you reverse engineer, okay, well, what are the steps required to get them from where they're at to where you want them to go, that accomplishment. A great way to do this is to write down what that transformation is and what that goal is, and then use something like Post-it notes, one idea per Post-it note, to just come up with what you know needs to happen. And the reason why I love using Post-it notes rather than notepad and pen is because when you're brainstorming ideas, your brain does a great job of coming up with all these different ideas, in this case, all the different steps that might be involved, but it doesn't really do a good job of organizing them and creating hierarchy and order. So what you do is you write one idea per Post-it note, and then you can put order to them. That way, step 1, step 2, and step 3 come out of that situation. And finally, just a quick tip for you. This is based on a pet peeve of mine, and I don't want you to do this too, not because I don't like it, but because your audience may not like this either. And it's when I'm reading one of these step-by-step tutorials and I see number 7 is go buy this thing. Now, yes, your product is going to be involved in one of these steps, but to settle this and make sure it doesn't come across like that, you also want to share some free ways that a person might be able to accomplish what it is that that tool actually helps them achieve. So for example, I did a step-by-step tutorial once on keyword research, and it just so happened that some of those tools that I mentioned earlier were part of those steps, but I didn't want to have people feel forced or feel like that, well, that was the only way to get those results. So I actually shared a lot of the free ways that you can do keyword research. It was a lot longer and a lot more tedious, but that actually worked in my favor because by showing the free way to do it, I'm not saying, hey, go and buy this thing. This is the only way you can do it. No, there's these other options. They just take a lot longer. They're a lot more tedious. And therefore, when people see just how tedious and long those situations are, they're going to be more likely to realize the benefit of actually purchasing that product. So in your head right now, do you have any step-by-step tutorials that you can create? You want this to be as good as something that people could potentially pay for. You want them to say, wow, I cannot believe this information is free. Now, you are getting paid through the recommendation of this affiliate product or several affiliate products, depending on what it is that you're teaching. And it depends on kind of how you set this up. But if you have something in mind, keep that in mind for now. If not, keep watching because I'm going to show you some examples of step-by-step tutorials that I've shared and that are out there on the web that might inspire you too. So let's go into the computer and get started. All right, so you're looking at smartpassiveincome.com and specifically some tutorials that I have about how to build a niche website, meaning a website that's quite small about a very specific area that people need help with. And I've created 2 niche websites publicly in the past, one called securityguardtraininghq.com and another one called foodtrucker.com. Now that's a lot of where those keyword research tools came into play in my affiliate promotions because that was how I discovered those niches as potential opportunities. I showed people the exact process I used to discover that there were people who were searching for this information and there wasn't really a lot of great information about there about what these people were looking for, so I came in and created these resources. Now, along the way, as I was building this website and this case study from scratch and sharing each and every process along the way, and if you scroll down on this page, and we'll link to it along with the other things mentioned here in this video, below this video as always, you'll see that there are a number of posts that relate to just the process that I shared. So this was a very big case study, a very big step-by-step process that took several different days. I'm just showing you kind of the one extreme of, okay, well, this is something that's more than just one post, but literally a couple months in the making. But I will say that I shared a lot of things that were free that anybody can do, and I shared a lot of things that were a little bit more difficult and the free ways to do that. And along the way, I also shared a lot of tools and resources that I use to help make my life easier too. And I gotta say, I've noticed when I was doing this, and even now when I go back into the past and look at my analytics for this kind, for the details on these pages, people are still clicking on the links here where I mention the tools that can help them save time and money through this process. Now, if I click on niche site duel number 3 here, because again, I was kind of documenting this process over time. This is how to set up a new niche site before you add content, so what to do. So basically, this was a tutorial showing people, okay, well, how can you actually build this website based on the niche that you found? And you'll notice really quickly that I do mention the Bluehost hosting company that I mentioned. Full disclosure, I earn a commission if you purchase, and if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll notice that there's a link to a YouTube video, which you've seen, which is, of course, that tutorial on how to get started. So again, I'm teaching people the process of how to build a website from scratch, how to select a niche, build a website, and rank for it in Google. That's what this whole process was about. It just so happened that when I showed people what step 3 was, which was how to build a website, insert Bluehost, and it made sense to be organically placed there, and I would continue on with teaching people how to go through this process. Going back, I showed people how I got it to rank, how I got it to the first page on Google. Actually, some really interesting things happened while I was doing this case study. The day that I got to number 1 in Google for this example and sharing this step-by-step process, my Bluehost earnings skyrocketed because people saw that this thing actually worked. And we'll talk more about proof later on in this module, but through the step-by-step process and in those posts and videos and podcasts, you should definitely mention what this can do if somebody were to actually execute on these steps. Next, I'm gonna show you my starting a podcast tutorial. This is Pat's complete step-by-step podcasting tutorial. Here on a blog post, I walk people step-by-step through exactly what they need to know to actually start a podcast. Now, I go through a lot of free content up front, for example, how to stand out in the niche that you're getting into, how to create a editorial calendar, and how to make sure that you are going to set yourself up for success in the podcasting space. But then, of course, along the way, I mentioned, well, if you're gonna host your media files, here's the hosting company I would recommend to host your podcasting files. If you're gonna get a microphone, here's the microphone you're gonna use. So this gave me an opportunity to share a number of different items that would relate to podcasting, such as the microphones and the mixers and the software to edit and all those kinds of things. Some of it was free, some of it was paid, but it was all part of the process of helping people through the step-by-step process of creating a podcast. Now, what's really interesting is even though I have this free tutorial out there, I'm still able to sell and charge for a podcasting course too. So don't think that just because you're creating all this amazing content out there, first of all, you are gonna generate an income likely through the affiliate earnings on posts like this. And this page itself has likely generated over $100,000 just from affiliate earnings alone without even selling a course. But that doesn't mean you can't sell a course on top of that too for people who wanna go more in depth, for people who wanna get access to you, and so forth. Now, what about setting up an email list? Well, guess what? That's something that I knew my audience wanted to do, so I created a tutorial step-by-step on how to set up an email list. So it's literally called How to Start an Email List Step-by-Step, because people want that hand-holding across the way. And of course, I talk about the process, I talk about what it's done for me, and then I go into some of the steps down here in terms of tutorial videos. These are videos, they don't have to be videos, but here's how to set up your email list, how to start getting email subscribers, 5 strategies to get even more email subscribers, how to set up a winning autoresponder series, tips for sending broadcast emails, and then how to begin doing some more advanced stuff like email segmentation and triggers. Nowhere do I mention ConvertKit until you get in there and see the examples of the tools that I'm using. Actually, in these tutorials, in these steps on these videos, I say, here is the email service provider that I use. However, these steps are relevant no matter which email service provider you go with. But as a byproduct of sharing all this free information and people seeing that these are the tools that I'm actually using, people go gangbusters and want to make sure they use the same tools because they want to follow the same exact process. Even without me telling them to do it, they're doing it. And finally, here's another example on one of my websites, securityguardtraininghq.com, which I mentioned earlier was this niche site that I built publicly from scratch. Now this, I promote an affiliate product on specifically for those who are getting training for security guards in California. So on the page that is security guard requirements for California, you'll see here that it literally lists the steps that you need to take to become a security guard in California. So, and also the requirements too. For example, be 18 years old, undergo a criminal history background check, etc. And then here is the process for expediting this process online. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Here's the price that it's going to cost. Step 3, do this. Here's a link to get the forms that you need to fill out. Step 4, do this. Step 5, do this. And then some information in and around and related to that topic. Now, in here, related to the part where you need to take a test, I have a link that says, hey, if you want more information to help you pass this exam on the first time, click on this link. And of course, that is an affiliate link to the company who helps train people to get their guard card, which is the security guard membership thing in California. So it doesn't have to be very difficult. It could just be a blog post, or you can have it be more extensive, like a single blog post that has multiple videos, or you can even have it be drawn out even longer to multiple days as you are building this step-by-step case study yourself live. Now, physical products are a little bit different. Obviously, it might not be necessarily like a step in a how to do something online kind of thing, but you can still kind of reverse engineer, if you have a physical product, what you could potentially do in terms of a step-by-step tutorial where that product might be used. I mean, think about makeup, for example. There's a ton of amazing makeup YouTube channels that literally show step 1, foundation, step 2, blush, step 3, mascara. That's probably not the right order, but you know what I mean? And then of course people want to know, what's that mascara you use? What kind of foundation were you using? And it just so happens that you're going to be recommending the ones that you used, even though it's not about the actual products. It's about the step-by-step process to achieve a specific look. Going back to the fishing example, if I was teaching people how to tie flies, which you use when you're fishing on streams and lakes, for example, well, I would talk about the process and how to tie them and how to make certain kinds, but of course people might want to know where I get the hooks or I get the feathers to do those kinds of things. Caleb, any ideas for like another product? What about like a water bottle? A water bottle. Let's say, okay, let's say you have a water bottle. How can you reverse engineer that? You know, how to drink 64 ounces of water every day, or how to make sure you're hydrated on your next trip, right? And then you talk, maybe you wouldn't want to recommend an empty Arrowhead bottle, but you would recommend a bottle that makes sense because it keeps the liquids cold and, you know, all those kinds of things. So you see how we kind of did that there? We took a physical product. Where might that physical product be used in a step-by-step process? Let's just mention it in step 3 and just recommend the one that we use, because people want to use what you're using. As the authority, as the go-to person in the space that you're in, people want to use the same tools and same items as you. You don't even have to mention really that this post is for the purpose of actually sharing these items. And actually it shouldn't be the purpose. The purpose is to actually share highly valuable information in a step-by-step process that allows you to inject these affiliate promotions within them when it makes sense. So your task with this video, when you are ready to take action with it, is to create a step-by-step tutorial. It can be in any format that you wish or that you feel comfortable with, but I would challenge you to, again, add video into the sequence if it makes sense, and have this focus product of yours be just a part of that process. Now again, make sure you're disclosing that affiliate relationship when you do mention that product, and all will be well. So that's your challenge and your action item here. If you're ready to move on to the next one to see what else we can do to actively promote our products, click continue at the top, and I'll see you in the next video.